Morning. I'm Marana Shapiro, Chief Operating and Program Officer at Games for Change. I'm excited to kick off day one with a keynote fireside chat that promises to level up our understanding of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Join us for an engaging discussion on why the games industry matters to the UN and how, as a community, we can contribute to their critical work. Our esteemed speakers include Kai Young, Senior Program Manager at the World Food Program, Deborah Mensah-Bonsu, Founder and CEO of Games for Good, Jason Gonzalez, Tech and Gaming Officer at the Global Corporate Partnerships at the International Rescue Committee, and as moderator, Susanna Pollack.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. All right, now we're really going to get going. I'm so excited to start the festival with a session that features people who have been working at the UN and with the UN for many years, and that can offer some insights on what is happening within the UN programs and the games industry. I'm going to let each of our speakers tell us a little bit about the organization that you represent, and then also, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about some history of what game projects or game-related projects that have happened within your tenure or what you know about over the years.
So thank you, Susanna. So my name is Jason. I'm with the IRC, International Rescue Committee. I'm a full-time staff member dedicated to gaming partnerships, and we're a team of 2. And what we do is work alongside the gaming sector to further our humanitarian mission. We respond in the moments after a natural disaster or a conflict arises, and we're with refugees, people who have been displaced from their homes, uprooted, all the way through the process of reestablishing life in a new and welcoming and inclusive community. We're the largest resettlement organization in the United States. So each year we help 13,000 people in the US find new jobs, re-enrolled in school, receive food, shelter, and all of the necessities of life.
And you were the first games officer. Is that your title?
Yep, exactly.
The first games officer. That's awesome. Yeah. And so what have you been doing?
For the last 18 months, we've been working alongside the community and industry members of gaming to reach gamers, of course, because you're all experts in your communities and your audiences, and we're experts in our humanitarian work. And we've just seen so much alignment with values. For example, last week alone with Pokemon Go, Niantic's mobile game, we reached over 9 million people around the world in 4 key markets to share the importance of having a safe and secure home to return to. And that was really a nice alignment with Niantic's mission, which is to get out their players in the community to explore and learn more. And really, sometimes we joke that I should not be on the fundraising team and I should be on the comms team, because it's all about finding that unique story to tell and just kind of resonating with people's hearts. Another, for example, story was with indie studio Muse Games and publisher Koali with the game Wildmender. And in the game, the creators were so passionate about our work, they came up with this concept of a downloadable content, a hat, a hat with a yellow band on it. And that represents the protection IRC offers to our clients who have been affected by climate crises, because the game centers around gardening in the desert and reviving life within such a climate-stricken environment. So some really cool stuff.
So it's really interesting. So you are marrying the kind of the sharing of information to help build awareness, right, and develop empathy for as you call your clients, right? So people around the world that are dealing with many different challenges, as well as fundraising, because that is, you're saying you are in the fundraising department, right? And the opportunity to reach millions and millions of players to give donations, right? I mean, and it is a very generous community.
Yes, yeah. Definitely.
I want to talk to Kai, because when I was, preparing the session and looking at the history of games associated with the UN, it's actually one of the first games, Free Rice, that many of you guys know about. That, right? I mean, seriously, it's an amazing, amazing game that started how many years ago?
Put me on the spot. Predates me 15 years ago. It's been a while. Yeah.
So why don't you talk a little bit about the World Food Program and some...
Sure. Happy to, but just to share with this group, I played Candy Crush this morning.
Okay, very good.
Which might say a lot about me, my age. But, I'm here representing the World Food Program. It's the largest humanitarian aid organization in the world fighting hunger. I have notes. It's just there'll be some numbers, so I don't want to misspeak. At any given time, we have 6,500 trucks, 140 aircraft in the sky, and 20 ships at sea delivering not just food and services for WFP, but for the entire humanitarian community, providing logistics services for the entire humanitarian community. In 2023, we served 152 million people in 120 countries around the world with aid and service. Tremendous number. The need is greater. There's over 300 million people in the world facing acute hunger. That number's risen to pre-pandemic levels, and it's been a challenge for the organization. The way we go about our work is through what we call our saving lives and changing lives agenda. Certainly through the rising conflict, change in the climate change and economic shocks, we save lives by immediate distribution of food and resources and support, but also sort of deepening and changing lives by working with farmers at the community level to create a market for them for our school meals program, working with governments on resilience programs to be prepared for the next climate emergency and other pieces. So that's a bit of what we do, a little bit of everything, but a lot of immediate emergencies that are growing, unfortunately, but then certainly looking long-term of how do we help these communities help themselves over the long term. You mentioned free rice, but I want to take it back to even before that, and I was hopeful to have the CD-ROM. I could have sworn I saw it in the office, but in 2005, we launched a game called Food Force.
Food Force.
Which was a CD-ROM-based game created by WFP that really helped tell the story of what we do. 6 different missions you could play, including airdrop simulation and ground transport, avoiding landmines and other roadblocks, and purchasing and receiving products and services during emergencies. In 6 years since when that was launched in 2005, 6 million downloads in 18 countries. At the time, a lot of reach, a lot of education. That was the aim, was education. And since then, we've continued to dabble in the space and had great success doing so. Free rice was mentioned, and I appreciate the applause for those who understood it. Share the Meal is a very recent innovation that we have. I don't know if there's any applause or familiarity with Share the Meal.
But you should. You should look it up.
It's an app that we have. Thank you. Maybe that's my colleague.
You should applause, but you should.
It's a downloadable app for donating and peer-to-peer donating and getting involved on it's a fundraising app, but it's been wildly successful and award-winning. But yeah, again, we just dipped our toe in the water and being opportunistic. Because of the work that we do, we haven't taken advantage of the opportunity to deepen our engagement with the gaming.
So that's why you're here.
And that's why we're here, is really to say that we are putting together and have put together a strategy to be more present, to be more willing to engage, to raise our hands to you all, to say, let's talk, let's find ways to tell our story, to help train our staff around the world, to help behavior change at the local level on nutrition programs or whatever it may be, and start to work together. So I think really thrilled by the opportunity and the chance to engage with this vibrant community, and say that WFP really wants to get serious and engaged.
It's going to be in the game.
So thank you, Susanna, for all you've done.
No, I'm really excited to see where it's going. It's going to be great. So Deborah, I know that you have worked very closely with the UN Environment Program and were one of the architects around Playing for the Planet. And I was wondering if many of our audience may be familiar with it, but I think it's such an interesting and well-developed program. I'd love you if you wouldn't mind give everyone a sense of what it is and how you engage with the industry.
Sure. So hi, everyone. Really nice to be here. I feel a bit far away because there's this table.
I was going to say,
like,
should we move it?
table so we can be, no, I'll be a bit disruptive probably. You work on that while I, yeah, so Playing for the Planet, it was founded back in 2019 at the UN Climate Summit, and it's an alliance of studios basically trying to bring the industry together to decarbonize. So currently we have 49 members, and it's a mix of studios as well as trade associations and some platforms. So looking for a 50th member, if anyone is out there who's a game studio would like to join. And the goal of Playing for the Planet is for everyone who's a member has to make commitments every year to try to mitigate their emissions and also account for their footprint, and then report on those every year. And then that's sort of the one side of Playing for the Planet. And the other side, a big initiative that we run every year is called the Green Game Jam. So one side is the business, the studio, how do you account for the work that you're doing there? And then the other is how do we reach our billions of players, right? So the Green Game Jam this year is in its 5th year, so we reached a bit of a milestone. We started with 11 studios back in 2020, and now we have over 80 games participating this year, which is really exciting. And the whole point there is to try to reach audiences about different environmental subjects and themes, engage players with games that are already out in the wild.
I think that's what's so interesting. When we think about game jams, we think about the creation of new prototypes. But can you talk a little bit more about what kind of games are participating? And
yeah, so normally, like you said, when we think of a game jam, we think about like, okay, you've got 24, 48 hours to come up with some kind of prototype for a new game. But this jam is all about tweaking your existing games, often games with massive audiences, because we're really trying to reach scale with the Green Game Jam. And then every year we have a different theme, and then studios will jam and innovate on their existing titles to incorporate some kind of environmental messaging or event or fundraising scheme, so that we can, try to use that influence now, as opposed to maybe in 3-4 years if a game comes out. So
when's the next Green Game Jam?
So currently, it's almost like running all the time, because it's not just 24, 48 hours. It's kind of running throughout the year. So right now, studios are finishing up their designs, and implementation should happen around September, October, which means you're going to see a bunch of environmental content live in games around September or October. And then, the next sort of Green Game Jam will kick off pretty soon. Pretty soon after that, we'll have the awards for the Green Game Jam in November, as well as Green Game Awards for the first time, as well in general, for anyone who already not entered the jam. But, yeah.
So what I heard a lot of, about, particularly what you were talking about, is like the process of co-design, right? And we've talked about how programs and initiatives can be used with games to build awareness, to educate, to fundraise, to bring communities together. But it's obviously the underscore the importance of the design process that's focused on the co-creation to shape new ideas. So when you collaborate with certain studios or big initiatives, is there any advice that you can give about how to ensure, authenticity? Because that's to when I think about that, I think about putting a new spin or tweaking into a game that already has, audiences. You have to do it with authenticity, right? Because it's just not going to work otherwise. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, happy to open it up. I think my key advice is to take my call, be open to conversation, and like you said, co-creating and being transparent about your goals. Because we as a nonprofit, sure, we're new to the gaming space, but we're dedicated to it. And we have organizational commitment to be in the gaming space with your community members, your players, your fans, your consumers, and your employees too. So we want to spitball with you. We want to do some virtual whiteboarding and just leave it at that for me.
Yeah. Obviously, the co-creation process, that's the heart of what the Green Game Jam is, right?
Yeah, I think a few things when it comes to this collaboration piece. I think one is really important is do your homework. I think if you're on either side, I think sometimes these collaborations between games and NGOs can be mismatched, or something that I see a lot as well, because I work with studios on implementing these things within games. And often, I do get approached by lots of different NGOs or charities, etc. And I think sometimes the attitude can be, hey, games industry, or you're a game, can we now do this with your game? Because we'd love to talk about X subject with your game. But there are so many different games out there and so many different kinds of audiences and people who play them. So I think it's super important that if you're an NGO or a charity, that you think about, like, why this game, why this studio, what are the values of this studio, do they align with our values, what's going to be interesting to players specifically around the work that we do. So coming in with a little bit of the legwork done before talking to a studio is really important, I think. And then on the other side as well, if you're a studio looking for a partner, like discernment, this space is getting really crowded, and it's going to just get more and more crowded. And you're going to find lots of bad actors as well. So it's really important, I think, to do your due diligence and find organizations that are credible, that are really going to align with the work that you want to do long term.
I think that's really great advice. We only have a few more minutes left. I want to just talk a little bit more about the fundraising aspect, because at Often of Games for Change, we really talk a lot about, more about the kind of impact and how games can be transformative, which obviously they are, and we wouldn't have this community if we didn't believe that. But we're seeing also tremendous success in fundraising through directed at the games community, and then also the game studios themselves and the generosity there. There was huge success with Fortnite and Microsoft, right? The response to Ukraine. I think something like $200 million, was raised in a couple of weeks. What if you were to make some recommendations about how those kind of partnerships align? I would love to hear about it. I think you've done some creative partnerships.
Yeah, I think we've all done really creative partnerships in our own ways, and fundraising is essential to keep our humanitarian work alive, and that's why we're reaching out to you for assistance. But we also want to make it sustainable, and I think that's something we all share in common is sustainable partnerships. And so we're always happy to do the legwork like Deb suggested and make those matches on the back end, but we can only get so far. For example, we have really cool immersive learning programs that use gaming-driven technology with headsets to help newcomers in the U.S. learn their new communities without added stress. So if anybody out here wants to work on that, we can always brainstorm.
And these are like VR headsets, so they can simulate experiences.
Mm-hmm. Navigating their community, navigating schools or healthcare systems, etc.
And that's great. Well, there's some great VR experiences up here too, and amazing partners, and I'm sure would be well suited, right, for that kind of work. Which leads me to my last question. We've got, 400 or 500 people in the audience, many of which are game studios and other NGOs that would like to explore how to be part of Playing for the Planet or support WFP or the IRC. How do you go about making those kind of brainstorming opportunities?
I'll start. I think for the World Food Program, first of all, I'm here for the next couple of days, so find me and my colleague who's somewhere in the room. We'd love to start these discussions. But beyond that, beyond the traditional social media, LinkedIn, things like this, we are actively present at all of the UN engagements going forward. Summit for the Future is an event happening at UN General Assembly Week here in New York. That's an opportunity. I will also plug this wonderful platform and organization and work that we'll be doing together, hopefully with student challenges and other pieces going forward. So I think we're hopeful to continue to leverage this partnership and Planet to reach each other. But again, just say we are open for business and happy to have conversations. I think the work that the organization does is perfectly suited for the game space. Time-sensitive operations, strategic thinking about accomplishing goals under distressing and ever-changing situations.
Sounds like a great game.
Right? And I don't want to diminish the work, but just to say I think there's a story to be told.
It's great.
And a rich platform by which to do it through you all.
Deborah, what about Playing for the Planet? How do people get involved?
Yeah, so step one, definitely check out the website. If you are a studio that's interested in membership, you can find contact details there, and somebody from the team will walk you through the membership process and what does it look like to write a commitment letter, what are the right kinds of commitments for your studio to make. Another thing as well, next week we're actually launching the beta version of a carbon calculator that's been designed with studios, and that will later then be released to the public. And this is also for not just people who are directly working sustainability, but like an HR manager could be using this tool. So it's very accessible. I would also say if you're maybe an indie or a smaller studio, because Playing for the Planet generally deals with some of the larger studios, then the IGDA Climate SIG is a really, really great place for you to find community around this topic of environmentalism. It's a really great grassroots place. So yeah, there are lots of different ways to engage, but those are some.
And last but not least, Jason, you have created an opportunity later today or tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow I'll be hosting a topic table at lunchtime. So if you haven't registered, go ahead if there's still space. Otherwise, find me or my colleague Christy here by searching IRC in your Games for Change app, or message me on Discord at Jason_rescue.
Great. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us today. It's a great way to kick off the festival with an inspirational conversation. You know, it takes a village, and I know that this audience here in our community are excited to support and get involved. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.